Good morning, everybody. How are you today? Fine. Today we have to start a new lesson, yeah, teacher. We have finished from the fractions. Now our lesson today is about decimal numbers. So we took in grade 4 how do we write decimal numbers and letters? How do we compare two decimal numbers together? Now in this lesson, I will show you how do we write decimal numbers in letters, how do we write the expanded form of a decimal number, and how do we change fractions to decimal numbers and decimal numbers to fractions. Okay, before we start, I will revise for you a decimal number. In how many parts is the decimal number divided? We know that decimal number is composed of 3 parts. What do I mean by decimal numbers? Did you remember? For example, when I say, give me a decimal number like 2.3, 5.7, 8.2, and so on. We have plenty of decimal numbers. If you look at these decimal numbers can be written like this. It has 3 parts. The first part, we call it whole part, decimal point in the middle, and a decimal part. So 2.3, for example, 2.3 is composed of 3 parts, a whole part. What is the whole part? The whole part is the part to the left side of the point, okay? So this is the whole part to the left side of the point. This is the decimal point, and this is the decimal part to the right side of the point. So عندنا 3 parts لدecimal number. عندنا الwhole part, 2 هو الwhole part. The point, we name it decimal point, and this part we call it decimal part. So دايما الwhole part هي to the left side of the point. هيدي الpoint left side هي الwhole part. The right side it's the decimal part. Will point we call it decimal point. Okay. Now we want to know in this lesson the place value of each digit. What is the place value of 2? Is it ones, tens, or 100? What is the place value of 3? The position of the digit in the decimal number determine the digit's value. The place value chart. هيدا the place value chart. It's so important, your teacher. Please, you have to study the place value of each digit. Okay? We said that the decimal number is composed of 2 parts. A whole part, هيدي الwhole part اللي هي to the left side of the point. This is the decimal point. عندنا الwhole part وعندنا to the right side عندنا decimal part. Let me say, for example, 1235.7856. أنا الهدف من هيدا الأكتيفيتي أعرف البليس فاليو لل7 لل8 لل5 لل6 بالديسيمال بارت والبليس فاليو لل5 وال3 وال2 1 بالهول بارت. Okay? How do we know the place value of each digit here? بالwhole part وبالديسيمال بارت لأنه أي decimal number composed of a whole part, a decimal part, and here a decimal point. Let's start first with the whole part. بلش أنا دايما بالwhole part. الwhole part أنا بعتبرها مثل كأنها هي whole number عادي. نحن إذا قلنا for example 567 هيدا whole number. It's not a decimal, whole number. شو البليس value لل7? We start from the right side. We say ones, tens, 100, 1000, and so on. Here the same. دايما الwhole part أنا بعتبره مثل الwhole number. بلش من الرايت سايد ones, tens, 100,000. It's the same. ما في فرق بيناتهم. No difference. Okay? ما في فرق بينه وبين أي whole number or whole number not decimal. So we have to start from the right side. Ones, tens, 100,000, then 10,000, 100,000, million, and so on. Okay? دايما ببلش من الرايت سايد. من الديجيت اللي هي beside the decimal point. هيدي الديسيمال بوينت الفيرست ديجيت beside it هي الوانز. مش ببلش من الوان هو الوانز. No. We have to start from the digit that's beside the decimal point. هيدي الwhole part. We start with ones, tens, 100,000, and so on. We go from right to left. Ones, tens, 100,000. Okay? So we have finished from the whole part. Now we go to the decimal part. دايما بالديسيمال part اللي احنا عم نحكي to the right side of the point يا teacher ما عنا ones. We'll not talk about ones. Okay? We start with what? مش هون عنا ما في عنا ones. هون عنا tens و at the h it will be tenth. So there is no ones, ما في ones بالدecimal part. We start with 10 and we place th, so 10th. Then 100 with th, 100th. Then 1000 with th, 1000th. إذا كملنا هون 10,000 بتصير 10,000th. 100,000 بتصير 100,000th. Okay? So please you have to revise the place value. So بالwhole part we start with beside the decimal point. يعني احنا عندنا هون الديسيمال point. بدنا نبلش بالwhole part بالdigit هي to beside the decimal point. وبالدecimal part also we have to start with the digit that's beside the point. I will not start from here. No. طيب هيدول two digits. بالwhole part we start with ones, tens, 100,000, whereas in the decimal part there is no ones. We start with tenth, hundredth, thousandth, and so on. Okay? This place value chart, please, for study. When I say, for example, what is the place value of 5 here? It's ones, the 3 tens, 200, then 1,000. But in the decimal part, we start with 7. We start with tenth, hundredth, thousandth, 10,000th, and so on. Okay? We have finished from the place value chart. Now, how do we write in letters any decimal number? We need the place value chart for what? In order to write any number in letter. How do we write it in letters? For example, 6.3. How do we write it in letters? First step, we write the whole part. شو هي whole part? 6. We write 6. The decimal point is written as and. The point, I will write it as and. So 6 and. The decimal part as if it were a whole number. How do we read the decimal part here? 3. We write 3. At the end, we write the place value of the last non-zero digit. شو هي last digit هون؟ هي 3. 6.3. من هي last digit؟ هي 3. What is the place value of 3? بالدecimal part نحن we have to start with what? Go back. We have to start with tenth. The place value بالدecimal part the first digit هي 10th. So ال 3 شو ال place value لها؟ We start with 10th, 100th, 1000th, and so on. So 3 is the 10th digit. So we have to say 6, the whole part, the point, and 3 what? 10th. So 6 and 3 tenth. We write it like this in this way. So we write the whole part, it's 6. The point هي and, the decimal part هي 3. What is the place value of 3 اللي هي last digit? It's 10th. So 6 and 3 tenth. That's it. Okay? Now, how do we write 0.2 in letters? We write the whole part هي 0. The point هي and. So 0 and decimal part 2. What is the place value of 2? هي tenth. حالكم طريقة ثانية يا teacher. لما يكون عندنا 1 digit بالدecimal part بنقول tenth at the end. لما يكون عندنا 2 digits for example 0.21 بنقول شو 100th. لما يكون عندنا at the end لما يكون عندنا 3 digits we have to say what? 1000. For example, how do we write 0.21? 0 and 21 hundredth. Why hundredth? Because we have 2 digits here. Type 0.213. How do we write it in letters? 0 and 213. We read this number, but we have 3 digits, so we have to say 1000 and so on. Okay? لما تكون الwhole part 0 فينا نحن نشيل الand وما ضروري نكتب 0. يعني we can write it quickly just 2 tenths لأنه الديسيمال part هي 2 وعندنا 1 digit يعني tenth. Okay? Yeah. 10.3. How do we write it in letters? The whole part هي 10. So we have to write 10. The point هي and. Decimal part هي 3. How many digits do we have in the decimal part? عندنا 1 digit, so we have to say tenth. 10 and 3 what? Tenth. Here the same. 0 and no need to write it. We can skip it. 0 and. Decimal part here 29. How do we read 2 and 9? 29. But how many digits do we have here? 2 digits. So we have to say hundredth. 29 hundredths. Okay, no need to write 0 and. Here the same. The whole part here 10. The point is written as and. The decimal part here 31. But how many digits do we have? And 31. 2 digits. So we have to say hundredths. So 2 and 31 hundredths. Okay, teacher, is it clear? That's it. Now, how do we write decimal numbers in standard form? Here, I gave you the letter form. We want to know the number, so opposite to the previous one. For example, 8 and 3/10. How do we write it? بكتب. How do we write 8? We write it like this. And means point. طيب. 3/10. طيب. When I say 3/10 means the decimal part is 3. 10th means that we have just one digit in the decimal part. ما بكتب 10th. 10th means that we have just one digit in the decimal part. So بيكون هون الديسيمال number هو 8 point and هي point with 3. Okay, that's it. So 10th means just one digit. من هي الديجيت هي ال 3. Another example. 7/10. Did I write and? No. So the whole number is 0. Point. لأنه ما في عنا and. 7/10. How do we write 7/10? 10th means we have just one digit here. من هي الديجيت هي 7. So 0.7. No and, so no whole part. Okay? Like this, we write decimal numbers in letters. Now, how do we convert a decimal number to a fraction? For example, 0.4. How do we write it as a fraction? Simply, we read the decimal number correctly, simplify if necessary. For example, 0.4. How do we write it in letters? أول شيء حتى أنا أكتبها كفراكشن بقراها in letters. How do we write 0.4 in letters? 0 and 4/10. Or we said that the whole part is a كانت 0, we can skip it. We can write it just for what? 4/10. صح؟ 4/10. ليش 10th؟ لأنه عندنا بس one digit بالديسيمال part. طيب 4/10 كيف فيني اكتبها أنا كفراكشن؟ 4 over what؟ 4 over 10. نحن أخذنا بجريد 4 حتى أنا أخذنا بالprevious lesson الفراكشنز. We took how do we write fractions and letters? We write 4. Denominator هو 10, then we place th. So 4/10. So 4/10 means 4 over 10. So 0.4 it's the same as 4 over 10. Okay? 0.05. How do we write it as a fraction? First of all, how do we write it in letters? 0 and no need to write it. We write it in letters how? We have to write 5, 10th or 100th, 100 because we have 2 digits in the decimal part. So 500th. Type 500. Do you know how do we write it as a fraction? 5 over what? Over 100. That's it. So 5 over 100. Okay? Like this, we change the fractions, the decimal number to fractions. طب إذا أنا هلا عملت the opposite way. I gave you the fraction, you want to know the decimal number. Type. Write as a decimal number 3 over 10. How do we write it in letters? كمان دايما أنا لحول الديسيمال نمبر لفراكشن أو الفراكشن لديسيمال نمبر بكتبه in letters. 3 over 10. How do we write it in letters? 3/10. طيب 3/10. How do we write it as a decimal number? Did I say here and? No. Means the whole part هي 0. Point. 10th يعني عندنا one digit بالديسيمال part. من هي ال 3. So it's 0.3. That's it. Okay. So 3 over 10 هو 0.3. طيب now 27 over 100 the same. How do we write it in letters? 27/100th. How do we write this fraction in letters? 2700. طيب 2700th. How do we write it as a decimal number? 0 point. 100th means we have 2 digits. من هنا 2 digits 2 and 7. 27. So no whole part. 0.27. That's it. Okay? Please try to do exercise 1 alone. You will convert the fractions to decimal numbers to fractions same way. First, you have to write it in letters, then convert it to decimal number. For example, 5 over 1,000. How do we write it? 5,000th. Type 5,000th. There is no and, so the whole part is 0. Point. When I say thousandth, how many digits do we have? 3 digits. 3 digits, and we have to write what? 5. Okay, but you have to pay attention here. ال 5 هي 1000th digit معناتها 10th وال 100th here بده يكونوا 0. ال 5 بحطها at the end, not at the beginning لأنه ال 5000. Okay, and so on. If you didn't understand, I will repeat again on I have you on Monday. Okay? Bye bye.